In the top stories, police recapture 4 of 5 missing detainees. Motorists spend days queuing for fuel as Cuba faces shortages, and humanitarian situation deteriorates as fighting in Sudan rages. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Friday, the 28th of April, 2023. I'm Jason Davis. Nationally, the police have recaptured 4 out of 5 detainees who unlawfully left a government detention facility on Wednesday. According to a police update, Dominican Republic national Nicolas Santana Areche is still at large. The police force is reminding the general public that harboring any person deemed a fugitive or assisting a fugitive in any attempt to evade law enforcement is a criminal offense subject to prosecution. The public is urged to assist by calling the nearest police station if the locations of the escaped detainee is known. In other news, Premier of Nevis, the Honorable Mark Brantley, was a panelist at the 15th Annual Caribbean Renewable Energy Forum, or CREF, on Thursday, where he spoke on the Nevis geothermal energy project and the island's agenda with respect to renewable energy. The 2023 edition of the CREF is underway in Miami, Florida, with more than 400 policymakers, developers, financiers, and investors from across energy, climate, finance, technology, and industry in attendance. Premier Brantley was among 6 presenters at CREF's annual ministerial, where regional leaders, quote, explored how national strategies need to evolve and adapt in light of the current global energy dynamic, the pressing need for decarbonization, and the drive for energy security, end quote. He was quoted as saying, quote, it was an honor to participate at this year's CREF conference and to meet with industry leaders in the renewable energy space. Nevis's geothermal energy project took center stage in my discussions as we work to transition the island of Nevis and the wider federation to a 100% fossil fuel-free country, end quote. According to CREF, this year, the 3-day event was one of the largest thus far, with national leaders across multiple jurisdictions bringing delegates up to speed on progress, milestones, and opportunities for investment and engagement in the renewable energy sector. Nevis recently closed the bidding process for the production well drilling phase of its geothermal project. With more than 100 inquiries, the bids are now being evaluated. The NIA anticipates the evaluation process will last approximately 6 months, and drilling is expected to begin within 6 months of the signing of the contract. In other news, Dr. Terence Martin, finance expert and national of St. Kitts and Nevis, was the lead financial literacy consultant in Grenada over the past few weeks as the country transitions to fortnightly payments of salaries for civil workers. A similar move in St. Kitts and Nevis is expected by summer of this year, according to the ruling St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration. In a video interview, Dr. Martin spoke of a few of the topics discussed in Grenada and the benefits of switching to fortnightly payments.
The point of the seminars is to basically, one, create financial awareness, create financial knowledge, because a lot of the financial mistakes that we observe is a lack of financial knowledge. The fear, though understandable, it actually could be a good thing in going to fortnightly, because what happens then is that, for example, somebody with a loan, instead of making 1 payment a month, could make 2 payments a month, cut that payment in half. And because of this process called time value of money and understanding compound interest, they would realize that over time they actually pay less in interest and they will pay off that loan faster. So that's some of the topics that we're talking about.
Virtual and in-person sessions were held, and topics included the psychology of money, understanding how to set smart financial goals, compound interest, and the time value of money. Dr. Martin also warned against the high cost of borrowing money while advocating for the common man to be able to invest easily.
But also, too, when it comes to borrowing, right, high cost of borrowing is a thing. We've seen the rise of payday loan companies in the Caribbean. Why? Because they fill a needed space. People need access to capital. And on a regional scale, we need to find ways in which to make capital less expensive. We could liken this to some of our Asian counterparts, where their governments make access to capital a lot easier. And obviously with small developing countries, we don't have the similar resources. However, we have to find ways in which to make the cost of locals doing business more attractive, right? Because a business is an investment. A business is an investment.
He said persons should not wait until it's too late to pay attention to their finances or wait until something happens to act. Moving now to news on the regional scene. In Cuba, motorists have been queuing for fuel, sometimes for days at a time, due to crippling shortages. The island nation is highly dependent on energy imports. President Miguel Diaz-Canel blames oil-producing countries. Fuel shortages are some of the biggest challenges facing the president, who was re-elected for a second term last week. Al Jazeera's Ed Augustin reports.
Empty fuel pumps and queues of vehicles that stretch for blocks. The latest chapter in Cuba's long economic crisis.
There's no fuel. We spent 3 days driving around. We've been to 6 or 7 gas stations and the queues are never ending.
President Miguel Diaz-Canel says the country is only receiving 2/3 of the petrol it needs. He's blamed supplier nations.
The countries that have commitments to us to supply us with gasoline based on the agreements that we have with them have also been in a complex energy situation and have not been able to meet those commitments.
So drivers are organizing themselves into lines and using WhatsApp groups to find out where and when tankers are arriving. Some find ways to while away the time.
If it doesn't arrive today, it will arrive tomorrow. But I've got to be here. I go to my house, I shower, I eat, I come back with my guitar and continue composing.
Cubans are used to spending time in queues, but there's something almost surreal about this. This line has over 300 vehicles in it, and it's over a kilometre long. Last week, the government started rationing how much petrol and diesel drivers can buy.
This will allow us not to touch zero and to cover vital services such as ambulances, necrological services and transporting potatoes to the market, which requires diesel.
One economist says the main reason for the shortfall is the cash crunch.
Without fuel for tractors, harvests are smaller. If workers can't make it to the factory, productivity is lowered. If there's one sector that the rest of the economy depends on, it's fuel.
Raidel Labrada and his family have been waiting around all day and have a long night ahead.
My tank only has a space for 35 liters, so I drive for 2 days and then have to come back to sleep outside a new petrol station.
In the short term, it means long nights and dreary days. In the long term, it means more price increases and an economy that produces even less. Ed Augustin, Al Jazeera, Havana.
Leaders from 3 indigenous tribes in Brazil have united to fight illegal mining on their lands. They've convinced heavy equipment manufacturers to stop selling machinery to miners in the Amazon. Al Jazeera's Monica Yanikev reports.
Federal agents destroying equipment used by illegal miners in Brazil's largest indigenous reserve. It's part of an emergency operation launched by the government in January to save the Yanomami people from extinction. But they aren't the only ones in danger.
Mining in the Amazon has exploded in recent years, affecting not only the Yanomami but also the Kaipo and Muduruku people. The government is now addressing the problem by chasing away the illegal miners, but it's not enough. That's why our tribal leaders have formed an alliance to take our fight against invaders to a new level.
Doto Takaire traveled all the way to Asia to meet representatives of the South Korean company Hyundai to convince them to stop selling excavators to retailers in the Amazon.
These machines are being used to kill our rivers and our people.
These aerial images taken by Greenpeace show the devastation produced by illegal mining in indigenous territories.
During the last government led by Jair Bolsonaro, 390 square kilometers of the Amazon were destroyed by miners. That's twice the amount of the area destroyed during the 4 previous years.
Deforestation is only part of the problem. Mercury used by miners has polluted the rivers, causing a health crisis among the indigenous people. They were left with no water to drink nor fish to eat. As soon as he took office in January, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva took action. He expelled around 20,000 illegal miners from the Yanomami Reserve. But machines used in mining are also a big part of the problem. Greenpeace identified 176 excavators being used in the area. Almost half of them were from Hyundai.
Hyundai representatives in South Korea were surprised when they heard our report, but they also showed interest in cooperating with the Brazilian government to make sure their machines would no longer be used for illegal activities.
During Bolsonaro's government, indigenous leaders felt they were alone defending the world's largest rainforest. Now they say they have hope things will change. Monica Yanakiev, Al Jazeera, Brasilia.
33 soldiers have been killed.
Internationally, the situation remains dire for Sudanese trapped in the capital city, which has become a battleground. There are reports the city has no electricity and limited phone connectivity in Khartoum. Al Jazeera's Hiba Morgan reports.
Through the aftermath of battle in what used to be a marketplace, now ammunition shells litter the streets. The situation remains dire for Sudanese trapped inside a city-turned battleground.
The crisis is big, the situation is very tough, and there's difficulty in internal movements. We often stand in long queues to get bread. It happened many times where we get bread, but never the amount that my family need.
The damage has hit everything. Both of them are fighting each other, and we the people will be the biggest losers and the most affected.
We urge the two parties to the conflict, namely Al-Burhan and Hamiti, to show the Sudanese people 10% only of the care and attention they gave to foreign countries through safe corridors to evacuate their nationals from the country. We need to take our sick people to hospitals and to remove the dead bodies from the streets.
Emergency services have been stretched beyond capacity and are pleading for help. A doctor filmed these scenes at a Khartoum hospital.
There are still injured people in the hospital. Medical supplies are very scarce. No medical teams have managed to reach us due to lack of security and safety on the roads leading to the hospital. The injured are still coming to hospital because of the current battles.
If the fighting wasn't enough, some fear armed looters even more. CCTV footage captures men dressed in military fatigues and carrying weapons breaking into shops. It's not clear who these men are or which side they belong to. Both the army and rapid support forces accuse each other of breaching law and order. Elsewhere in the country, the town Jinena near the border with Chad has seen intense battles. The area has witnessed ethnic conflict in the recent past. Now the sound of gunfire can be heard as locals run for cover. There are reports the city has no electricity and very limited phone connectivity. Concerns of a return to civil war are high for many in Darfur. The previous war lasted nearly 20 years and pitted Arab tribes against ethnic Darfuris. The fighting in recent days has again highlighted that division. Countries continue to evacuate their people from Sudan. Aid workers arrived in Jordan on Thursday.
I think all of us feel very relieved, but all of us have very mixed feelings also because we leave our Sudanese people behind. Yeah.
The Sudanese army has denied reports it will enter into direct talks with the RSF. Sudan's foreign ministry said in a statement, the rapid support forces have no choice but to surrender or perish. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
And now for the weather. Present weather is cloudy skies, and the temperature for today is 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are south-southeast at 3 to 8 miles per hour, becoming variable or calm at times. Seas are moderate with waves not exceeding 5 feet. The weather forecast in St. Kitts and Nevis today will be mostly cloudy skies with periods of showers, some of which could be moderate to locally heavy at times. There's also a slight chance of an isolated thunderstorm developing. Tonight will be partly cloudy skies with a 50% or moderate chance of brief overnight showers. Sunset today will be at 6:30 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 5:46 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jason Davis.